Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. And for the first time in what feels like forever, it is match day review time. A combination of mental health battles and, of course, the Christmas period and returning to work meant that we've not sat down and done one of these for quite a while. So, first of all, welcome back to Rhys. And also, we appreciate for the second time this season the company of Gary Demain. He is an Accrington Stanley fan. We will put his Twitter details, as always, in the description at the bottom of the video. So please go and give him a follow. But of course, it is very nice to be sitting and reflecting on not just the Gills win, but a come from behind Gills win, scoring 2 goals away from home. Huge 3 points, Rhys, I think is the general consensus on social media, and it's always a nicer place when Gillingham win a football match. So Saturday was quite pleasant for all of us.
I think it was. It's the fact that we've actually won 3 in a row as well. Is if you take away obviously the cup stuff, it's actually the proper business end. We won 3. I can't remember the last time we won 3. Well, we won 3 at the start. I think 4 at the start of the season, and I kind of feel like it was a nice. And we're getting onto that, hopefully onto that crest of that wave again. But yeah, to win 3 in a row, to come from behind, and those 3 points, and against a team who we're pretty much equaling us so far this season, to have, to get a little bit of gap between us and Accrington was, and towards the playoff area was tidy yesterday. Absolutely.
Yeah, we was in the playoffs, weren't we? Until I think the 97th minute of the MK Dons game. Unfortunately, I didn't see that until late last night, which was quite frustrating because I was all, I'm going to have a beer. We're in the playoffs, lovely. And then looked at about 20 past 10, and MK Dons had nicked a winner, but that doesn't take anything away from what the Gills did. It was a good performance. I think I always write an overview before we do the timeline, and I thought personally, I know we've still got this issue where we don't create loads and loads of chances, but I put, aside from a small period of the first half and a 15-20 minute spell in the second, I thought we controlled the game without creating, like I say, loads and loads of chances or forcing Joe Walsh into loads of saves. Just your thoughts on that, gents, as well.
Well, I thought as a summary, I thought the first half was was quite flat. We did pretty well controlling the game and getting into the final third, but then there was no end product, and we lacked that.
Where have we heard that before?
Take that off the bingo cards.
Oh yeah, last week and the week before and the week before.
Yeah, got that one on repeat. But do you know what? Actually, we do keep saying that. But I reckon yesterday was quite exposing, because we had some great play in the midfield. We were really trying to create some stuff, but it just fell into the box. And I think it was that lack of confidence. And there's a couple of chances in the first half that we got into the final third, and I just thought, someone just take the initiative or intuition to get in there and do something with it. It didn't happen. But I thought we controlled the game. And in the second half, I thought apart from that first 15 minutes, and when Accrington got ahead, I thought again after that we got a little bit of energy. We needed a bit of a goal from a set piece or a bit of luck, and we got that. And then we had a bit of energy moving forward. But I thought for the most part we looked just about in control of most of the game. Obviously with the tinted rose of Gillingham glasses that I have on, that's what I say.
Yeah, and we all tend to do that, don't we? Gary, what was your thoughts just briefly before we go through the team news and the timeline of the game? I know you messaged me last night on social media and said that you felt a draw was probably the fairest result. So I imagine you're sticking to your guns 12 hours later.
Well, actually, I started thinking about it, and obviously we had 2 really good chances in either half. Josh Woods reacting to a save from your keeper, then passed it straight to him. From about, it looked like 4 yards out from the Clayton end. It might have been a bit further out. A good opportunity there to take the lead early on when it was still 0-0, I think it was. And then right before Gillingham scored the second, we hit the post and the bar, or the bar and the post at the same time, and it bounced on the goal line and then was cleared. And you sort of think, on such small chances, the games hinge. And I think at that point, whoever was going to go in front might they were going on with some points, and maybe going to win the game. And I think within 2 minutes, you guys had scored, and that was that. So I think you were physically the stronger team. We were a very young side, and they're still learning the trade. I think that tells in those sorts of situations. So to say you control the game, I think is pretty fair. You may not have had a lot of chances, like you said. I didn't feel Joe Walsh had a lot to do really, and I don't think your keeper did either, to be honest. But I think you kept control of things in midfield. You kept us at arm's length. We had to pass the ball from wing to wing, and to say with the home side, I think you left us with very little opportunities. So. We had spells where we were really breaking through and working, good energy, good passing, slick moves. And again, even in defence, you were just managing to do what you needed to do to sort of fend off those attacks. So, very close game. Anyone probably could have won it at any point in the game. And it, as we've just discussed, it sort of spoke volumes about where we both are in the league. We started the day, in consecutive positions. So probably you would have expected what you saw yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that's what me and Tony discussed on the preview show as well. We both said it'd be a goal either way. It was never going to be a game that one side ran away with, and it played out that way. We'll quickly go back to 2 o'clock when the team news came out and just run through them quickly, them teams. So Accrington set up in looked like a 4-2-3-1, or at least a variation of it, and that was obviously former Gills youngster Joe Walsh in goal. It was a back four of O'Brien, Hills, Gubbins and Shipley. It was then the first Woods and Martin sitting anchoring, and then a trio of Nolan, Henderson and Pritchard flanking lone striker Woods. Gills, same system that we've become accustomed to in recent weeks, Rhys, and that was a 3-4-1-2. So that was Jake Turner in goal, a back three of Masterson, Amer and Ogie, Mackenzie and Malone operating as wing-backs. Ethan Coleman partnered with Tim Dieng this week due to an injury to Dom Jeffries. Connor Mahoney tasked with operating in that free role just behind the front two of Ollie Hawkins and the recalled Tom Nichols. I've written down Mahoney involved early on. I think in the first couple of minutes he pinched the ball on the halfway line after a poor pass, and then he had a cross blocked. Just to reiterate what I said, I thought first 15 minutes we were in control without really testing Accrington defensively. Connor Mahoney was at the forefront of that. I think the first sort of shot in anger, though, came from the home side, Rhys, and that was the lad Martin, who advanced, I think, from about 25 yards, and it was a toss-up whether it was closer to the corner flag or Jake Turner's half post, and that sort of summed up the first period of the football match.
I think it went out for a throw-in, didn't it?
It weren't far off, I don't think.
Yeah. I just think that first sort of 15 minutes, I wonder if it was like a close chess match. It was obvious to me that Gillingham were definitely going to be taking the lead of possession. We seem to be doing that a lot more recently, and it was always going to be maybe a quick break or a quick counter for Accrington when their chance was going to come as well, particularly for that first sort of quarter of the game. But yeah, and that's kind of what happened really. But I thought both teams were just trying to get the feels of each other, trying to work each other out a little bit how it's going to move on, because Gillingham being a much more physical side. I did hear, and Gary, you probably have better knowledge of this, but I heard the average age of the Accrington side out there is about 21 and a half or something like that. It's so
yeah. I think we brought a sub on and the average age went down even further. So very young side, and I think we'll talk about that later. But yeah, they're very young, definitely. Yeah, a low average.
But the reason I bring that up is I wonder if that's the reason why we took the lead of possession is in that first that first part of that half, is just Accrington trying to learn the trade of how Jim going to play, and I wonder if inexperience or youth kind of sort of dictated its way towards that. But yeah, say Matt, I think there wasn't much to say in the first sort of 15 minutes, but I think we definitely controlled most of it.
Exactly, and that sums up our issue, doesn't it? Because we've all sat here and we've done this quick overview of the game, and we've said that we're all in agreement that Gills have dominated territory and probably the ball. I know we can look at statistics, but it just felt that Gills were controlling the pace and where the game was being played. But the first two chances that we're going to talk about come from the home side, and that's been our problem for far too long. Because the next one is the huge one that Gary's already alluded to, and that's Ben Wood shoots from 20 yards. I think from our point of view, there has to be question marks over Jake Turner. He just sort of pats it back into the middle of the 6-yard box. It's the other Woods, isn't it, then, that simply has to score. I know there was talk on commentary of maybe he thought he was offside, but as a striker, you put it in the back of the net and then worry about the flag afterwards, surely, don't you, Gary? And it was a huge opportunity that he passed you by.
Yeah, right at that moment, I thought that is going to tell at the end of the game. I knew it'd be that was a match defining. Would you class it as a miss? You hit the keeper; it was on target, but yeah, could have done better. And again, we look at the age. We're very sympathetic to some of the guys. They're still learning the trade. Most of them have quite a few league games under the belt because of the injuries last season and consequently this season as well. So they are getting league experience. The problem is, I think, for us, is they're not getting a lot of that experience with experienced players beside them. They're good enough, they're talented, they will all make a good career in football. But at this stage in the careers, they could just do with that, guy who's 26, 27, 28, top of his
Yeah, I
game.
think it said on commentary,
knows
didn't
how
it? The
to
captain was 27, and then the next oldest was 24. Aside from that, it was all teenagers and people that were sort of 20, 21. And like you've mentioned, you brought on the lad, I think Aaron Pickle's second half, he's 18. So that average age drops even further. And you are missing people like Seamus Keneally and people with that sort of stature and experience and leadership. And it was a very different sort of midfield that we saw back in Kent in August. So that's clearly going to have an effect. But it's great that John Coleman trusts them to go out there and do a job. And like Rhys has said, you look a solid mid-table team at the moment at worst, I think. So there's no real sort of issues in terms of moving forward. It was one of them games that was on the flip of a coin almost. Rhys, we finally created something resembling a chance shortly afterwards, and that was Connor Masterson. I think for the first time, one of the centre halves was brave enough to step out with the ball, and he played a 1-2 with Robbie McKenzie. I think there was a step over from Tom Nichols on the edge of the box, and it made its way to Scott Malone, who then played it back to Nichols, who returned it. I don't think Malone's made a good enough contact. It's sort of scuffed. No. It looks like he's dragging it across goal rather than in the far corner, but the defender doesn't know that. He has to make the block, and again, similar to the Stanley chance, it was an opportunity that we probably didn't make as much of that we should have done.
No, but that's the play on repeat, isn't it? Every week, it seems like every time we get into the box, it's like, oh, what do we do now? When everyone just like looks at each other, and goes, oh, what do we do here? Like it's some sort of foreign territory, and it's and it screams out for leadership. No one takes it had to eventually bumble its way to Scott Malone, who probably went, do you know what? I'm just going to bang it now, and he didn't even do that properly. It was just
in fairness to him, he has been one of the few that has.
Yeah, that's true.
The trigger on the edge of the box on occasion this season. I mean, we know that the goal against Sutton just before Christmas was an unbelievable hit, and then we've had the one where he, the good piece of skill at home to Notts County. But you'd really say it's probably only him and Mahoney that have shown that sort of cojones, for want of a better word, to trust in their own ability from the edge of the box. Ethan Coleman on occasions has been unlucky at the post a couple of times. But yeah, it's something we see, like you say, it's either a lack of leadership, or I think predominantly is a lack of confidence as well, because we're still the lowest scorers in the division, and I don't want to rub that in too much for Gary that we ended up scoring 2 in an away game. But yeah, then the game just had another lull. That's what the first half felt like. There was like periods of a little bit of action, and the rest of it was just spent with Gills keeping the ball and Accrington keeping us at arm's length. I never felt under threat defensively, aside from when Jake Turner spilled one. I think there was another sort of half chance. I think Tom Nichols did well to get on the end of a clip round the corner from Ethan Coleman and held it up and waited for Robbie McKenzie to get on the overlap. I think he stood a ball up to the far post, near post, sorry. Tim Dieng made a decent run, to be fair to Tim, but just doesn't get enough contact on it. I think he's having to sort of stretch backwards a little bit. But then what we do well is we do recycle possession, and Scott Malone, I think, gets it the far corner. Shad Ogie's then brave enough to go and join in and puts a decent ball into the box that Ollie Hawkins heads over. But I want to give credit to the defender here, Gary, because I thought we've mentioned this physicality, and we know that's what Ollie Hawkins brings to any football side, whether that's playing as a centre-half or a centre-forward. I thought the centre-half done well, though, just to know that if he's not going to win the header, at least get up and make it difficult for Hawkins to get his header on target.
I mean, I played very amateur football as a youngster, and you've just got to be present. That's just as important as winning a challenge. If you're there, you're giving them something to think about. And as we've said, if you've got a side that aren't maybe confident in front of goal, or don't have the ability in front of goal, then that's all it takes. You just get in the way, give them something to think about. There's always the little nudge that goes in, which we're not canny enough about. I think Gillingham did have that because of the age and the experience. Just to give a little nudge, a little push. It's not necessarily a foul, but it's just put your body there, and that puts off the guy who's having to think about jumping, aiming the thing in the right place. It's like he's got all that going on in his head. All you have to do is just jump up and try and get your head on it, and it works quite often. Just make your presence felt.
Absolutely, that's it. And I think Rhys will agree. We're all going to say, I think that we've played football to a standard.
Yes,
whether it was a good standard is a different question. But we know the game enough that if you're a centre half, you just jump and make yourself as big as possible to make it that header much more difficult for the centre forward. Yeah. To finish the first half, and I think it's fair to say that we're going to talk more about the second 45 minutes. I think it was the lad Nolan came to the fore in terms of actually getting the ball, probably for the first time in the half, in any sort of decent position from an Accrington perspective. Rhys, I think he had one free kick that I thought maybe he should have crossed, but fair enough. He's had the ball. We can't moan at that if we're moaning about our players not doing it. So it was a comfortable save. It was catching practice for Jake Turner, and then he had the ball again, I think, and cutting onto that left foot Nolan. And again, it was straight down the throat of Jake, who comfortably fell on it. There was a couple of bookings, I think, just to finish the half. One was correct for me. I have to get a little bit in out of the referee. Second one, I didn't think was a yellow card. They'd spoke on commentary of it being maybe the angle that the referee's seen it from and he's come from behind, but it just felt harsh from an opposition point of view. It's one of them. I think if it had been given on a Gills defender, I'd have been screaming blue murder at the official. Rhys, what did you make of the second yellow card?
It wasn't even a foul, in my opinion. It was a really good tackle, actually. But it's one of those things. If the referee is interpreted as that being a foul, therefore it has to be a yellow card. If it was,
which is what they said on commentary. Yeah. If he feels the player's come through the back of our player, then he has to give the yellow card. But again, it comes back to there having to be a balance between applying the laws of the game and just showing a little bit of common sense. He's never in danger in the opposition.
No,
I don't think it was I thought a yellow card was very harsh, Gary. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I don't think the ref had a particularly good game in phases. He didn't do too badly, but some of those decisions did go the wrong way. I think that tackle you're talking about, I think there was something very similar on the opposite side of the pitch where your defender earlier on had done a similar sort of tackle. We got a free kick, but no yellow card was given. And it's like, and they were in similar positions in the opposing team's half. So you could say there's an attempt on goal being made or something, even though they're both quite close to the halfway line. They're probably like 10, 15 yards into the opposition's half. And I thought, well, you can't give a card there. Nobody's rolling round. You can't give a card there and not give a card to. It was probably 2 minutes earlier. I felt in the mist of my memory. So, and I think there were a few occasions where we say it all the time, don't we? Consistency wasn't there. I have a theory about refereeing. I don't know if you want to hear it, but I think if it's a professional game, you should have professional officials as well. There's enough money in football to pay a few guys to officiate games as a profession, a proper profession, not part-time. And when you want players to understand rules and maybe get a better idea of why some of these decisions are being made, it does help if the guy who's doing it spends more time doing his craft than you do doing yours, because I think it lets the person, the officials down themselves. I moan and whinge about officials, but I have a lot of sympathy for them. It's a very hard job. And I think really whether there isn't enough people willing to do it as a profession, they all tend to have quite good jobs, most referees anyway, and it's a nice thing to do at weekend. But you've seen it in the Premier League. You've got professional referees. you've got 4 guys in a room watching it on telly, telling him he's wrong as well. So, it's got a. I think that would be a very easy thing to take some of these contentious decisions out of the game if the referees are practicing, week in, week out as part of their job.
Interesting theory. Probably something that we don't have time to discuss.
No, sorry.
In one episode. No, but it's no.
Really.
Don't apologise. It's an interesting look at it, of course, yeah, because everything else about the game at certain levels is professional. So why shouldn't the officials be any different? And it's it's something. It's similar to my sort of thoughts on people in high positions within the FA. Should be former players, former managers, rather than just what I think the common term is pen pushers. Because again, and it comes back to that point about the balance between applying the rules and showing some common sense. I think if you had officials and people that were running the game that were former players and managers that would have a sympathy with both sides of the game, we'd see a better game. But again, we could probably do a whole episode on it. So we'll write it down, maybe one in the summer. Second half, first 5 minutes, nothing happened. It was horrible to watch. I think both sets of defenders were whacking it up in the air. When the ball eventually did get anywhere near the green stuff, we committed a foul on the edge of our box and Accrington opened the scoring, Rhys. And from our point of view, it wasn't great.
No.
We've already mentioned our physicality and the size of us and the players that we've got. We've got Shad Ogie, we've got Maxima, we've got Connor Masterson, we've got Ethan Coleman and Tim Dieng, who are big lumps. We've got Ollie Hawkins. Accrington send one ball into our box, which is fairly flat. And for me, it looks like Tim Dieng and Connor Masterson are marking each other and allow the lad Henderson just to run and stoop it in off the far post. There's no blame attached to Jake Turner with this one for me, but it was just very poor from start to finish from our point of view. I felt that the foul was probably needless. And then we don't set up correctly, we don't mark correctly, and we don't attack the ball at all.
No, it was I've got to give credit to Henderson. It was a good header. He got down to it and he stooped. It was a good contact. He got it right in the corner. And it clipped the post, I think, and went in as well. So he really got down. It was a good finish. But if once the goal was gone in, I don't know if you saw Masterson's reaction afterwards. He just put his hands on his head and he was absolutely disappointed with himself, with the players around him, because Henderson, he had the whole of that area pretty much to dictate how he wanted to get his head on the ball. And it was just left alone. I mean, I don't know how tall Henderson is, but on the eye follow, he didn't look that tall compared
he doesn't
to
look as tall as half of our team, no.
Right. And it was as much as I like to give credit for the goal scorer and the skill to put in the back of the net, I think it's more to do with a mismanagement and poor defensive from our side that allowed that to happen. Credit to Henderson for getting it on target. It's a good header, I have to say, but it was not helped by the fact that it was really poor defending from three centre halves as well. That's the thing. We have 3 centre halves on that pitch, and 2
giant centre midfielders. Yeah,
and a player is stooping to head a ball. Really? Okay, it's not a good look, I have to say.
It comes back to the Ollie Hawkins chance, doesn't it, Gary? It's similar. If the Accrington players made the run to get in front of the 2 Gills players, at least do more to make the header difficult, which Gillingham don't do.
Yeah, no, Endo's, I think he played his first full 90. Did he play his first full 90 minutes on Wednesday? Did we substitute him? But he's won man of the match from our point of view, 2 games in a row. He'd been playing bit parts up until recently. He's come through. Again, he's another young lad we've brought through. And he's a bit of a revelation. It's like, wow, he's burst onto the scene, literally, scoring goals, putting in great performances. So maybe if there's sort of like an excuse for the defenders is this is a very good young player. But yeah, it's simple stuff. Keep the base, do the basics, and the complicated stuff probably looks after itself, And he's I think he's actually taller than he looks, as they say. Whenever you see guys in after the game, I think he's probably about, I'd say, 6'2", 6'3".
No, fair enough.
But you do have some very tall players, so yeah. Just do the basics, and you'll probably see out that attempts on goal. You've just given him enough and put him off.
Exactly. Yeah, and then Rhys, it just felt like, and we'll get to my tweet at the end of the show that I tweeted at 1-0, something along the lines of, "I'd love to be proved wrong, but it feels like game over because our record coming from behind is horrific. There's no other way to describe it. I think the last time we done it was Wimbledon last February. There is a stat that I'll talk about at the end in terms of the last time that we conceded first on an away game and won.
Oh my goodness.
And again, I don't want to upset Gary too much, so we'll maybe just talk about it quickly at the end. But for 15 minutes, you have to question the mentality because we became ragged. We made wrong choices. We rushed passes. We rushed clearances. We gave away cheap free kicks. I mean, there were two more crosses that came into our box shortly afterwards. Jake Turner flaps at the first one and sort of pats it down into the 6-yard box. And I don't want to, single out Jake because he's been very good on the whole, but just it seems in recent weeks that the standards have dropped a little bit. And then, all right, we defended the second corner a lot better, and I think it went out far side in the end for a throw-in for one of the teams. But I've written down there was a clear change in us as soon as that goal went into the back of our net. And it was then a massive question of belief and mentality, and could we find it within ourselves to dig ourselves out of a hole that would at least had a modicum of self-creation around it in terms of the way that we defended the set piece.
It's a shame that we have to go behind to get that energy, or that, if that's kind of what you're saying, like, it's because we had that. I just want to say that period of time after Accrington scored, I thought that Accrington they could easily got a second and got really some daylight between us and them, but it was since when Accrington scored, it was. You started to see it was a little bit of poor play. Then the belief started to get in there. And I think what we needed after what we haven't had after going behind is, you could talk about, we need belief, we need leadership, but sometimes you just need a little bit of luck or a set piece to go our way. And I know we'll talk about the equaliser, but the corner came from nowhere. Like, it literally came from nowhere. It was surprising that we had it. But I think sometimes we go behind. Yes, we could talk about leadership, energy, whatever it is. But sometimes you just need a little bit of lady luck just to be on your side occasionally to find a way back into a game. And we'll talk about the equaliser in a minute. But I think the lead up to that kind of led to that. We had a little bit lucky to get into their half and win the corner, which ultimately led to the goal. But yeah, the belief started, I think, to grow after we conceded, but we shouldn't be having to concede to be able to get back into a game, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I know, absolutely, and I think there's been murmurings on social media and discussions have been had about the mentality of the players and the work rate and the desire and that type of thing, and I try to be very careful about questioning players' application because only they know whether they're working as hard as they can. I prefer to sort of talk about confidence and belief and that type of thing, which does play a massive part. Again, we've all played football. If you're winning football matches, you do everything instinctively. If you're not, you start having an extra touch, you take an extra second, and then your chances go. So I don't want to question the integrity of players too much because it's not something that we can determine one way or the other categorically. But I think I know what you talk about in terms of luck, because the corner before the corner that led to the goal was just a massive clearance that went up in the air. And I think the centre half come across covered and just sliced it behind his own goal. I think he's trying to clear it into touch for a throw-in. They get that one clear, but then what we do is we keep it alive to get the second corner. And I suppose, Gary, the equaliser comes, and can we ask similar questions of your defensive line that we've asked of ours in your goal? Because it's one corner to the far post. Ollie Hawkins is not a small man. He's 6'6". He's 16 stone. He just takes one step off the defender and heads it back across. Yeah. And then Connor Masterson's completely unattended to head it in at the far post. It's a similar sort of, I guess, sort of sloppy goal to concede would be the way I'd describe it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose let's remind ourselves it is League Two. So guys will make this mistake again. I think that shows potentially the naivety of our young side. I mean, you've got talent, you've got ability, you've proved yourself. You're playing full-time football in one of the top 4 divisions in the UK, but you still have a lot to learn. And it's the subtle things at this level that the young players don't quite have. I looked at throughout the game. There was a lot of naivety, the wrong pass at the wrong moment, whether it was in defence, whether it was in attack. Just play a straight ball through to the forward. It doesn't have to be across the pitch. You know, 40-yard pass that either goes out of play because you've hit it too hard, doesn't reach the player, gets intercepted. And it's the same defending. Corners, the tactics for defending corners should be simple. Just stick with your player. That's all you can do. If he's better than you, he'll get the ball and he may score or pop it out to somebody who's free. But if everybody's looking after the man, it's 11v11 at the end of the day, and 2 of them are in the goal. So, yeah, lessons to be learned from that one. That'll be, John will be playing that video back a few times on Monday morning, I think, and just trying to get the guys to, you know, be better next time. Could do better, basically. I think that's the story of those 2 goals.
Absolutely, and I suppose the caveat, like you say, from an Accrington point of view, though, and I'll ask you this, Rhys, because it's sort of opposite teams, and I like to get different viewpoints, is the fact that, like we say, the Accrington defenders, midfielders were a lot younger than the Gills. Gills players have been around the block, should know better. So I suppose you have to give a little bit more leeway and slack to these Accrington players, but at the same time, they're doing a job for a professional football team, and I guess if it keeps happening, okay, you can understand it a couple of times, but if you're a paying spectator, you're going to become frustrated very quickly, and you can't just keep saying, oh, it's because he's young. Well, if he's good enough to be in the team, then he's good enough to do his job as well.
I think it's important to give concessions to youth because obviously they're learning their trade. I think that's otherwise that they need that mistake needs to have been made, you know, because then you can reflect on it and learn from it. And it's a problem if you don't learn from it. That's where the issue would lie.
Yeah, of course.
So it's, you know, it sucks in the short term because obviously if Accrington fans would be a bit unhappy the fact that they've just conceded a very soft goal. But if it means that I can't think the defenders were, but if it's Hills or Gubbins, if they, you know, if they learn from that, they might get a bit tighter next time, make it more difficult for the next defender when you play against Walsall. They might stop a goal scoring opportunity. So they've saved themselves a point in the next game. And that if that progression happens, then, you know, that's good progress. But if that doesn't happen, then you can start to ask questions about players, you know, progression and are they actually learning from their mistakes in previous games. And I think that's the important thing to take away from that one. But maybe both goals, but particularly for the youth of Accrington, definitely.
I think as well, what I did think while I was watching the game is Gillingham were very, very organised in set pieces and corners. Almost, you know, it's a typical away approach, isn't it? If you can nick a goal at one of them, that's an easy opportunity, not an easy opportunity, but those are your opportunities on goal. And there was a lot of confusion at corners, you know, the old sort of pushing and shoving and a big input of players into the box as well. And that's where that confusion again, as an experienced player, you don't let it put you off. As a young player, you're probably going, what the heck's going on here? And I felt Gillingham did that well throughout the game. Wherever there was a set piece, wherever there was a corner, there was always some sort of strategy there. It wasn't just like, let's look for the player who's in space. There was an element of, you know, it had all been well rehearsed on the training field as well.
Yep, it's a fair point again. Like you say, it goes back to the point you made at the beginning, doesn't it? It's fine lines at the end of the day.
Yeah,
it is.
It's very fine lines, and sometimes you come out on the right side, and luckily we did. And I'm sure moving forward, Accrington come out on the right side of it. And again, you go back to the youngsters. It's the joys of the loan market, isn't it? That's they're diamonds that need to be polished and that type of thing. They're not the finished article because if they was, they wouldn't be playing in League Two. Gills made a couple of changes shortly after the goal. I think it's come out in the wash since the game, Rhys, that a few players have been suffering all week with some sort of sickness bug that had ran through the camp. So in that way, it makes the win even more impressive if there was a few that were under the weather. I know Robbie McKenzie and Ollie Hawkins were 2 that were mentioned. Ashley Naderson didn't even travel because he'd basically not been in since last week. So clearly something's gone through the camp. So it's a fair play to those that. And again, this comes back to questioning desire and that type of thing. If these players didn't care, would they be willing to get off their sick bed to go and try and claim 3 points in a game that we know is going to be arduous at times and tricky at the other end of the country? That's so, you know, each can answer that question in their own way. So yeah, Tim Dieng and Ollie Hawkins were the first 2 to be withdrawn. They were replaced by George Lapsley and Macaulay Bonne. We'll get to him in a little while. There was a half chance, I think, shortly after the changes as well, for us to take the lead. Conor Mahoney done brilliantly again, and I know he sort of flips in and out of games, and we'll talk about him at the end, but does brilliantly to wriggle away from his man, and then I think he waits for Robbie McKenzie and plays a really good ball inside the left back and the centre half into the 18-yard box. McKenzie cuts it back to Lapsley, who has a shot blocked. I'm not sure he caught it entirely as he wanted, but it was definitely going into the far post before it hit the defender. And then Macaulay Bonne had a snapshot as well, off balance, that went just wide of the far post. It was one of them. It probably looked closer from my angle on the camera than it did if we was where the Gills fans were situated in the ground. But straight away, it was two players that had come on were massively involved in the game, and they were involved in stuff that we were doing well. Then it was another half chance, another massive clearance from Ogie that probably came down with snow on it. And I thought Macaulay Bonne done really well in this instance. And this is something that we've said he's done well all season. He's very clever in using his body to get between the ball and the centre half. And the ball's come down from an absolute mile away. He's just adjusted his weight, and then he's able to, once the ball bounces, flick it on for Tom Nichols, who lashes a volley just over. It's a tough chance for Nico. I'm not saying he should hit the target or anything like that. But again, in the way that the switch had been flicked from 0-0 to 1-0 down, it was almost like it had gone completely the other way. Yeah. And there was suddenly this belief. And I know it's difficult because I've watched the game back this morning knowing that we've won the football match. But how did you feel at that point? Were you thinking this might just be the day where we do come from behind and win a football match?
I can't overestimate the importance of how we reacted after equalising. That passage of play, those three chances that we had, even though we didn't score, I think that was the turning point of the match, because it just meant that it made Accrington youth ask questions, and it gave us that sense of belief that we might be able to get something from it, because just out of nowhere, a couple of minutes after the goal, we've created two, not clear cut, but two good opportunities and one half opportunity. And all of a sudden, everyone's got their tails up, and Accrington possibly starting to doubt their own ability to defend this, and suddenly they're on the back foot. And because it happened so quickly as well, it's really hard to adjust yourself moving forward to the latter half of that half. So I think that small passage of play where Gillingham had a couple of chances was the architect of what was to come the winning goal, because I think it just gave everyone that sense of belief and made Accrington ask questions of their own ability themselves.
Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. And from your point of view, Gary, I suppose at the time, and also with the benefit of a night's sleep and some hindsight as well, I suppose you're probably left ruining the opportunity there from taking the lead, where you had that 15 minutes where we were massively under the cosh and making wrong decisions. Did it feel like a missed chance to maybe nick a second and go on and probably win the football match from that point? Because I know we've come back and won from 1-0 down, but at 2-0, I don't think there would have been any way back to the just, because you had a chance at 1-0. I think it was Pritchard got a shot off and Robbie McKenzie blocked it. But is there a sense of frustration with that 15, 20-minute spell at the start of the second half now that you didn't make more of it?
Yeah, I think you're right, and like I say, you see that in many games. We miss more opportunities than we score. It's League Two. That's what happens. But there are some there are some opportunities, and you think, oh God, I always go back. Something totally different. I always go back to last season. We drew 4-4 with Burton. We come back from 3-0 down at home early on in the season, and then right at the death, we put the ball from 6 yards out, about 100 foot over the goals. And if that goal had gone in, we'd have stayed up last season. We'd have still been in League One. And on such small things do great things hang. But I think you're right about the substitutions. I noticed immediately. I think they made the substitutions as we, from the restart of us scoring. I think I feel
from us scoring. They came on us just after we scored.
That's right. And it went from this messy head tennis, nobody really going anywhere type game, into suddenly you started playing a lot more slicker passing. Something had changed and we couldn't cope with it. We were still trying to work out what had gone on, and it totally changed the face of the game. And from there on in, you looked a more potent side, I think, rather than trying to get the odd chance from a corner or a free kick or the run of the game when the ball had broke, you actually looked like you were creating things and put us under a lot of pressure then. And we were on the back foot for a long time. I felt it was about, sort of maybe trying to make sure you guys didn't score a third rather than us getting an equaliser.
Nice to hear that, isn't it, Rhys? We'll just sit,
Yeah,
we'll just sit and take that in for 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, we going back to the comment earlier about once you go behind, the attitude of the team changes. I mean, is it that? Or is it like a wake-up call? Or is it part of, well, you're probably in training, you work for a number of situations, and one of them will be, it's 0-0, nobody's scored, let's just control the game and try and nick it. Once you go behind, it's like, well, you might as well lose 10-0 as 1-0 sort of thing. So maybe the game plan changes as well. Everybody knows, right, now we've got to go for it. We've got to make more effort. No matter how long, what stage of the game we're in, we have to get back to level pegging. So whether there's an element of game plan kicking in as well, I don't know. And maybe I think maybe giving our teams credit that there's some sophisticated plan in place. But sometimes it's a natural response. Sometimes it might be a part of the organisation of how the game's going to pan out as well. But you definitely were a better side after we scored.
From our point of view, whatever it is, Rhys, that caused yesterday, let's hope that it's the start of something more consistent and not just an anomaly again or another false dawn, because obviously we were the better side, I think, from probably 60, 65 minutes up until the end of the game. But there was a sort of I don't know if it's, I usually write half chance or chance on my notes. I've just written post because I didn't know how to categorise it. Pritchard takes a corner. We're not sure whether there's enough of a touch from a player to change the direction of the game, but whatever happens is it drifts and it's the far post. I know Jake Turner was complaining that he was being impeded, but the referee didn't give it. So if it goes in, it's a goal and we're 2-1 down and back to square one. Again, that's probably the fine lines that Gary's spoken about and we've spoken about, and we're probably thinking it might just be our day. We then made another change, which I thought was brave. Robbie McKenzie had run his race and was probably feeling the effects of this bug. We could have put Shay Alexander on. I don't know whether Shay was suffering as well, or we could have gone to a back four and changed it completely. But I thought Stephen Clements was clever and he was brave with putting an attacking wing back on in Jaden Clark. It's not a position that we know he plays regularly, but it certainly gave us some impetus. And he was involved again straight away, which is in the same way that Lapsley and Bond had been. And it was a driving run from Clark that I think set Mahoney away, I think it was. And I think he puts a decent ball in, left-footed, sort of cuts in. It's good defending. Let's give credit to Accrington. The defender's in the right place to get it clear. But we managed to recycle it.
Yeah.
And I'm smiling, so sorry, Gary, you might want to put me on mute. Ethan Coleman is very good at switching play. He's one of them people in the middle of the park that just gets about his business. We know that. We rate him very highly as a fan base. I think he slightly overhits the pass.
Yeah.
Connor Mahoney.
Yep.
Connor Mahoney does absolutely brilliantly from this point. Number one, he's running out of pitch behind him, similarly to like a fielder at long on in cricket trying to take a catch without standing on a boundary rope. He's got the wherewithal to have a touch on his chest to bring it under control. In the same moment, he then spins away from the left back and leaves him sitting down, drives into the box, couple of step overs, puts another one on his backside. When the ball comes across the box, you want a centre forward sniffing it out if it drops. Macaulay Bond, for me, is the best at doing that, and I've said that all season, and I will probably get people disagreeing with me, and that's absolutely fine. Tom Nichols has got an assist for a ball that smashes into his thigh. I'm not sure how much he knows about it, but it inadvertently drops in the perfect position for Macaulay Bond, who swivels left-footed and whacks it into the bottom corner. Gills are in front, from behind, away from home, Mexican wave and all that to us. How good is Connor Mahoney in that instance, though, to create that chance? Because that could invariably have gone out for a throw-in and the phase of play doesn't occur.
on iFollow, where I've seen a few Accrington games on iFollow, you can't see the byline because
No,
where the gantry is.
it
You can't see
disappears,
it.
yeah.
Disappears. So when Ethan Coleman smashes that, I'm expecting someone in row E to catch that one. That's what I was expecting.
Have you got a
And-
row E that side, Gary? I thought it was only
It's
four
not
that
that big
side.
a ground.
Is that too big? Sorry, too far back. We'll say row B. But I was expecting it to rifle someone, and then I thought, well, if he can get something on it and try and save something, but yeah, the fact he got it down, got it on the floor, and then with no pitch, beat Shipley, I think it is. He went round, and then, but not only did he beat Shipley to go round him, he then, as Mahoney's running into the box, he went with direction and meaning, rather than sort of like, oh, what do we do now, kind of thing. He went with a sense of purpose, and yeah, he cut on his inside, went right to the byline. And again, this goes back to sometimes you need a little bit of luck, and we had that ingredient in this makeup because it does smash Tom Nichols. He doesn't know what's happened, but you've got someone like Macaulay Bonne who can sniff out a chance, just as a snapshot, just gets a solid enough connection on it. And I think because it happened so quickly, it meant that Walsh couldn't react to it. It was on the far sort of right hand side of the goal. And it was just, it was, well, it was elation for me. I couldn't quite work out how I felt, actually, because I was excited when we come back from behind. But Mahoney was absolutely, is instrumental in creating that chance. And it all starts from essentially an overhit pass from Coleman.
Yeah, and I don't want to bring the Premier League into it too much because there's stuff up there that I don't like. But I suppose if you're looking at stats that look beyond the stats where you go with XG and that type of thing in the Premier League and higher up, if you're looking at pre-assists, Conor Mahoney's got 2 of them yesterday, so he won't get his name in a column on any sort of stats page for an assist or a goal. But it's his corner that Hawkins heads back into a danger zone, and it's him that makes the winner for me. It's gone down as a Tom Nichols assist, which is fine, but Conor Mahoney is at the heart of most things that we do well from an offensive point of view. I think there was a yellow card shortly after for Scott Malone. We then took Tom Nichols off and brought on Max Clark to try and see out the game and went conservative and sit on what we've got. I thought we saw it out fairly comfortably the remainder of the game. I think there was balls flung into our box and a couple of set pieces that we did really well. We had the best chance in injury time. That was Conor Mahoney again making his own half a yard. Gary, what was your thoughts? I thought it was a really good save from Joe Walsh. It's one that he's got to get down to and save with a big right hand. If that goes past him, that's 3-1 and that's game over.
Yeah, just looking at some of the video, trying to have a quick look. Obviously, from way back in the distance, it's sometimes hard to work out what's going on. But I think we had one half chance after that where someone spun round on the edge of the box and sort of scuffed it towards the corner, but your keepers got down and got it covered anyway. It goes to 3-1, we've nothing. It went very flat in the Clayton end after the second goal. It was like, oh God, we've chucked this away. And the players seemed flat as well. I think it probably killed the game at 2-1. I think we did try to make something because you get into panic mode, I think. But the fact it's like Connor came to us when he was a young player at Blackburn, came on loan for a while, and as always, your ex-players come back to haunt you, and he really did with that lovely bit of skill and determination, just persistence, taking the ball on his chest, turning around, putting people on the backside. Ball goes in, keeper saves, bang, it's in the net. So it's a good, well-worked goal. The box was full of defenders as well. Whether they should have been, again, a bit better positioned to try and cover all eventualities. That, the ball's, if it's going in, it's probably going to come out. Worry you if the opposition are going to pick up that ball. And we're not very good at second ball retrieval. Again, I don't know whether that's youth and inexperience or just the way we set our side up. But we tend to get a tackle in, and then the ball inevitably goes to the opposition. We clear the ball from a corner, and the opposition pick it up. We don't seem to be there very often to cover that ball. So I think really, although you hope you will claw the game back, it's all over once that second goal goes in, and then some subsequent chances where you're thinking you guys are having better chances than we are now. We're probably not going to come back from this, so it's more hope rather than expectation that you might have some sort of chance late on in the game.
Yeah, that's it. And we know in games, if you're one goal behind, it takes one error or one piece of magic, doesn't it? So the game was not done, but it was credit to us after questioning the mentality in terms of our ability to come from conceding the first goal. We did that really well. And like I say, I hope that's something that we can. Not that we like going 1-0 down, Rhys, of course. It's easier when you're 2-0 up. But if it's something that we need to, the bridge that we need to cross now, hopefully we can cross it a bit more sort of easily and more successfully. Like I say, I tweeted just after the Accrington goal that I felt the game was over. I then ate a massive slice of humble pie, which has had quite a few responses on social media, on Instagram and Twitter and the such. Just from our point of view, you've got to give massive kudos to the players to dig in and find something that we said they had to find, because the game could have got away from them in that 15-minute spell. We've had a bit of luck, but all good sides have that. Mm-hmm. And that's not just at League Two, that's at the very top of the game, the Premier League, the Champions League and that type of thing. Just how big a moment could this be in our season?
That's a really good question. Do you know where it could be a big moment? It could, because we now haven't got the thing hanging over us, which is we can't turn games around. We've done one now. It's taken, what was it? Someone said 333 days. So and I think I also know what the away game is as well. I've got a hunch, I could guess it, because I know you said you had that statistic. But
last time we went behind in a away game and won.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it's Swindon away. In 2021, we were 1-0 down. We got 3 goals back. Yes, is that what it was?
That's how long ago it is. It's nearly 3 years ago since we went behind in an away game. I think Brett Pittman scored. It was the COVID season when we couldn't go and watch games, and then I think Dempsey, Oliver, and might have been Oliver again. But I'm sure
it was Oliver with 2 goals and Dempsey with 1. Yeah,
we won 3-1. There was a question you asked at the beginning of the episode as well, Rhys, about the last time, aside from at the start of the season, that we won 3 league games in a row.
Oh, well, we won 3 in a row at the start of the season. Are you asking before that, you say?
Before that, yep. Someone asked me, and I had to look into that last night.
Oh my God, that's got to be probably somewhere. Oh, I don't know. That's even earlier, probably.
You've got to go back. You've got to go back to November/December 2020 under Steve Evans. We beat Wimbledon 2-0, I think, and then we beat Bristol Rovers and Swindon 2-1. So yeah, 3 and a bit years since we won 3 games in a row in the league. So kudos to Stephen Clements, because I've been very vocal about my question marks surrounding him as a manager. I think Hayden Parry tweeted last night and said that win percentage is up to 50% now. So you've got to give credit. We can't. That's not to be sniffed at. I'm not sure if that's in the league or that's all competitions, but the encouragement was Colchester and Sutton before Christmas, albeit a very poor Sutton side that played with 10 men for 70 minutes and a Colchester side that's woefully out of sorts. So as much as I gave credit for Stephen Clements for them 2 games, I wanted to see something against a team that's higher up the table. I think we saw that in spades. It wasn't perfect. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not saying we're going to jump into the top 7 and the top 3 now and get promoted. But I always think if I'm going to be critical, when I think it's due, then I'll absolutely be praising people when I think it's due as well. And I think Stephen Clements deserves praise. All 3 of his substitutions within, the game. I'm not talking Max Clark. I'm talking Jaden Clark, Jules Lapsley, Macaulay Bonner have all had a huge, massive impact on that result. Joe Walsh, I want to talk to you about. Rhys, you're a former goalie. It's great to see him playing. Certainly filled out, I think, since his days with us. And
yes.
I had a little chat with him on Instagram a couple of days before the game and said that I hope he's absolutely woeful on Saturday. And after that, good luck for him for the rest of the season. He's not done anything wrong. He's made a good save, and it's great to see Joe getting regular football.
Totally agree, and it's nice when you see players like that, ex-players or growing up and get to other teams. Absolutely, and all the best to him. It's he didn't step a foot wrong yesterday. I think he was just he had a solid enough game as a goalkeeper. And I'm sure Gary can probably allude to the fact he's probably had a pretty good season so far.
Absolutely,
I think it was 3 clean sheets in 7 before yesterday, wasn't it? I think we were talking on the preview show with Tony. So yeah, he's had a solid start.
He came in. It's a bit unusual circumstances. We're going through goalkeepers for fun at the beginning of the season. We had another lad on an emergency loan from Norwich, and we put him in hospital as well. So for Joe to come in, I mean, it's an emergency loan. We're renewing that week on week. So there's an element of uncertainty for him whether he's going to be back in the following week. I'm sure he knows he is. It won't be like on the Friday he's waiting for the phone call or whatever. But under those circumstances, he's been really well. He's slotted in brilliantly. His performances have been absolutely spot on. I don't really think he's put a foot wrong in most occasions. Yeah, he's doing a great job for us. I don't know what the circumstances are for getting players on longer loans, because we do have 3 keepers, but obviously they're all injured. But yeah, it'd be nice to see him at the club till the end of the season. That'd be really good for us. He's a player. He's got an affinity with the fans as well, as most goalkeepers do tend to get, because they're close to the home end, at least for 45 minutes of the game. So yeah, he's done a very good job for us. He stepped in when things were looking grim, and he's stepped up to the mark. Going back to your point about what it means for the season, I think that was probably for both teams a season-defining game. We might look back in May and go, do you know, that's where it all sort of our destiny was set out from that point on. Whether it's because you've got a new sense of belief, whether for us it's like, well, we do need experience back on the pitch if we're going to do things this season, or do we just settle for safety and sort of mid-table? That I think everybody said that would be fine at the beginning of the season. We've had a little bit of a glimmer of, we could get to the playoffs. I think we still can, but lessons to be learned from yesterday for both sides. But I think it really shows us where we are in that entire league, really, both teams.
It's the nature of the beast at this level, isn't it? You can have a strong starting 11 and with experience, youth, and that type of blend, but it's then trying to pad out the numbers and the quality behind that, isn't it? And it just seems at the moment, maybe just listening to you, that you need them experienced players back just to put an arm around them youngsters when the going does get tough. But yeah, they certainly look like good players in the making. And yeah, I think to reiterate what Rhys said right at the top of the show, he should be absolutely fine this season. And to pick up 6 points, Rhys, against Accrington is a good return. It looks like a better return than maybe it did when we won back in August.
No, absolutely. It's nice. I mean, we've had twice already got 6 points off Sutton and now 6 points on Accrington. I mean, Sutton you could expect it, but to get 6 points off an Accrington side, actually, I would have been hard pressed to agree at the start of the season if you suggested that to me. But to get 6 points is great. And and I've like I say, I'll reiterate again. I think Accrington will be fine. I wouldn't be surprised if then when they get that experience back on the pitch, they could go for a late playoff push. Absolutely, but it also could be that season-defining moment as well. I mean, we don't know yet, but it is definitely felt like a weird 6-pointer if that was your approach yesterday. It really could have been that.
Yeah, especially with you chuck in a January transfer window as well, don't you? It's a big month for a lot of clubs in terms of trying to consolidate where they are or getting to where they want to be at whatever end of the table. So yeah, it's certainly an interesting few weeks in store. One final question, gents, before I let you go. I've really enjoyed this. 2 purple goalkeepers yesterday. I didn't know that was allowed.
Yeah.
It is. I think it is allowed. It is allowed. It's the goalkeeper. It's up to the referee's discretion that he can tell the difference between the two. And because it's obvious that the only time, because goalkeepers are meant to be at opposite ends of the pitch, the likelihood of you confusing one next to the other is very, very low. And then the very rare occasion where one might go up for a corner, it happens so infrequently.
That was my question, where I thought that would then become an issue, because you could have someone could handball it if they're next to each other, and then it becomes a contentious decision. I've never seen, I don't think, the memory's not what it used to be, but I don't think I can recall watching a live football match where both goalkeepers have been kitted out the same.
They used to wear green, didn't they? Back in the day when I was a kid, it was goalkeepers had a green shirt.
Well, yeah, we've got 3. We've got 3 colours, haven't we? We've got green, grey and purple. So why couldn't we just wear green or grey yesterday? It didn't make sense to me. I don't know. Anyway, just a weird little one I thought I'd bring up.
Well,
it's been a pleasure, gents. Thank you very much. It's been good to be back.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks,
Gary,
guys.
maybe we'll get you on in the future and you can talk about an Accrington win. Obviously, from our point of view, we hope that never happens. But I do
It's
feel bad that you've come
unlikely, I
on
think.
twice and we've beaten you twice this season.
Maybe in
and,
the playoff final when we're both
maybe. Or you need to talk to Tony and tell him to do the review show last time if you lose, and you can go on the preview and
Yeah,
be
swap
positive
it
before it
round,
goes
yeah.
wrong. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea.
As always, Gills fans and Accrington fans, if you're still watching at this point, then thank you very much. Please do go subscribe to Rhys's channel if you haven't already, but I'm sure you all have because it is a brilliant channel. He's a brilliant man and there's brilliant content on there. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone. Officially now, the Lower Look Media club-specific podcast of the year 2024. That's quite a mouthful, but it was quite staggering. It's never been the reason that I run this channel. I run it because I enjoy talking about football and I enjoy talking about my football club. So to have been voted, and I know a couple of people made a couple of jokes when I put the tweet out a couple of weeks ago and saw it when I went to vote for other people and said I didn't even know I was on there. I genuinely, on my kids' life, didn't know that I'd been nominated. So to see my name on the shortlist with some other brilliant podcasts in, divisions above as well was brilliant in itself. So to have come out victorious is unbelievable. So thank you for the ongoing support. I really do mean that. Thank you to everyone that did take the time to vote. It is weird to think that nearly 7 years ago I started doing this, talking in front of a phone, and we're still doing it, and people think it's good, and people from opposition clubs think that it's good. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. We'll be back later in the week, obviously, to preview the Forest Green game next Saturday. We hope that you've all had a restful weekend. It's always nicer as a fan of a football club to know that you've got to go to work on a Monday morning with 3 points in the back pocket, which I'll be doing. Again, thanks for voting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the ongoing support. Until next time, up the Gills.